All right. So, also in our meeting, we were talking about, and if you don't know anything about me, I own a Meineke shop in Cinnaminson, New Jersey. We are a full service center. Um, we don't just do exhaust systems like most people would think. Um, we are a full service auto repair shop. And a lot of people don't realize what Meineke Cinnaminson offers versus, we'll say, like a Pep Boys or a Firestone or a Mavis. So in our center, the differences that we have is one, I'm the owner and I'm in the shop basically every day. Two, I am a master technician, fabricator, race car engine builder, things of that nature. So I teach my staff those things. We also do wheel restorations, body work without paint, custom chassis, suspension. So we do a lot of different stuff. Airbags, ADAS work, glass, basically anything that pretty much goes to a car except for paint. In earlier years, when I first opened 18 years ago and we didn't have any customers or any business, I had to build it from scratch. We were doing a lot of engines and transmissions and things like that for used car dealers, also along with used car recondition work, which is repairs and maintenance. So in our advertising, it wasn't an advertising meeting, it was just a meeting that was had a bunch of moving pieces, right? It was phone skills, training, a piece for tires with Bridgestone, which I didn't stay for, marketing, some sales, so a bunch of different moving pieces. But one thing that, again, I'd like to take away positive things is, especially coming off of an election year that was a big, complete social media disaster, a bunch of other disasters with wars going on, and Biden and Harris and all the nonsense and shenanigans and bullcrap that went on actually affected my location for one reason or another, or multiple reasons. And then I felt, this is just me, in the Northeast, right? So the Northeast, one of the bigger cities, I feel that the Northeast area had such a high volume of catalytic converter thefts for a long period of time, which impacted the current year. So last year and the year before that, and a little bit of the beginning of the year, we had high volume of stolen catalytic converters, which artificially drove the Philadelphia area sales trends up, right? So once the local law enforcement and federal governments put a kibosh, right, meaning you're not just going to get a little slap on the wrist now, that you were going to go to jail, and they set up sting operations. Most of the sting operations were centralized in New Jersey and Philadelphia, and it turned out to be the salvage yards that were doing it. So if you take the Philadelphia area that had a false forced sales trend, right? Because typically catalytic converter business was just nothing real crazy. Exhaust business is typically down, right? Catalytic converters and exhaust is a downwards trending sales category, right? Then you have this influx of stealing, and primarily in the Northeast, it gave us a stock market fugazi, right? It's like, oh, well, something influenced this. It could be real or not, but this was real. They were stealing so many catalytic converters in the inner city, which is Philadelphia, right? Which is not the greatest area in the entire world. People were on, average people, anybody, you could have been your neighbor. They were stealing your catalytic converter and taking it to the scrap car because we have such a lawless system. So we went from, exhaust down, 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 and then a little spike in catalytic converters, and then social media, and then the news, and then another spike, and then another spike, and then it went boom, and it went on for like a year and a half, which trended into 2024 election year. So at the end of 23, the government, the insurance companies, the powers that be put law enforcement, federal government on the burner and said, you got to do something about this. The insurance companies are losing so much money. So as they nipped that in the bud at the end of 23, you could see that immediately it was here, and it was just like this. It was just a growing trend. I was doing 10, 20 a day, if not more, multiple times a week for years, or 5 a day or 3 a day, or however the case may be. So it was like this, stolen Catalytic, and it started exhaust parts. And the government got involved in sting operations, and then boom, 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 boom. They busted so many junkyards and scrapyards in New Jersey and Philadelphia. The light switch went off into 2024. So for me, I don't have another product line that I could blow up that fast in the Northeast, Philadelphia, New Jersey area that can, I will just tell you, in the tune of $300,000 in growth in a catalytic converter that was like a false sales trend. There was no foundation for that business, right? Unless the government didn't do anything about it, which they did, right? They won't do anything about drug addicts in tent cities and everyone's sleeping on streets, but the law enforcement, and I would bet the insurance companies basically just said, hey, you better do something about this. And they did. So we didn't have a foundation of a real business for a product line, and it was just out of control. And it was so lucrative, I feel, in the Northeast and probably some other bigger cities around the world, but there isn't really that many bigger cities. You got New York, you got Philadelphia, and probably some other ones. And I would say, I don't know if New York was just as bad, but it just seemed like Philadelphia area was on fire with scrap yards and salvage yards being the ringleaders of stolen catalytic converters. Not only that, if you were just stealing a catalytic converter and you were your neighbor and you stole off your car, you could just go to the junkyard, no questions asked, and get $500, $600, $800 for a catalytic converter. So we had a product line that had no foundation, that was trending upward. I want to say probably over 3 years, but we didn't see a peak in that until it was 23, and then it teetered off in the beginning of 2024, and then it's been nothing or near nothing and back to where it belongs. And with an election year for us, it always seems that uncertainty, just on a regular election year, scares the consumer confidence. And then add in all the other nonsense and bullshit that went on in our world this year, with that war in Hamas and Biden administration and the border and 2 assassinations on Trump and on and on and on. It just busts consumer confidence, and I don't know if it busts consumers' confidence in the disposable income consumers. Are they really super duper concerned as the rest of the world would be? It's just my experience of what I'm talking about. So at the meeting, they were said, if Philadelphia could do 1 more car a day, which is 6 more cars a week on average, if you're open 6 more cars a week, it would start to take that trend from, I'm going to say, an election year, and then coming off a non-foundation core service that was motivated by theft that didn't have any foundation to stay. If we could just get Philadelphia and my own shop, for me, we are flat with last year, and I'm thrilled with that. But I still want, as a business owner, a shop owner, you want to see growth. You want to see your sales move. You want to see your profits move. You want to see your core customer base. You want to see all your product lines do well. And we were flat, and I'm okay with it. But what resonated with me in the meeting was 1 more car a week that we normally wouldn't take in, right? Because that 1 more car a week through the height of stolen catalytic converters was hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not thousands of dollars of every day of high profit work, and unobtainable stuff in most locations, right? You can't really go to a Firestone or a Pep Boys and get your exhaust fixed without them replacing everything. And how I offset some of the core services is by doing other things that other shops don't do, like wheel restorations, headlight restorations, engine repair, interior repairs, radio touchscreens, door speakers, window motors, door handles, ADAS, body parts, rear end rebuild. So our shop is very versatile versus other shops. Diagnostic work, steering column work, rack and pinions. I mean, we basically do everything besides paint a car. We don't really rebuild transmissions, although I would be willing to put a reman or a new unit in. Forget putting used anything in other than maybe a motor, and I'm skeptical about that. So before the meeting, I told my staff we're going to go back to what we used to do. Instead of turning away engines and transmissions, we are going to start taking engines and transmissions, selectively picking and choosing. So that could be potentially one more car a day, but how many people really need engines and transmissions that want to use a Meineke? Probably not that many. So that would be one more car. We usually don't prioritize oil changes as a quick lube experience. So I told Rachel that we will open up our window of opportunity to start taking in one more oil change a day if it fits the business system to where and for me, I really just don't want to deliver a quick lube experience at all for anyone. It's just too risky. It's too risky to run around for a quick lube environment and have a wheel fall off, a loose oil filter, a loose drain plug. And you guys see all these YouTube and Valvoline and Take 5 horror stories. That's what happens in quick lube environments. I don't want to do that. So we have to slow that down and deliver the 100% service so there's no flaws. So I said, okay, well, we're going to start taking in cars that we don't normally take in, so which would be engines, transmissions, body work. We do that too. So we took in another job that was within our wheelhouse. So that would be another car. But again, these are product lines that aren't popular to my store. So wheel restorations for the retail customer in my area, they're not interested in a scratch in their hubcap or a scratch in their aluminum wheel or their painted wheel or things like that. So my wholesalers basically send me the wheel restoration work. I don't think I've done any retail wheel restorations. I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of wholesale wheel restorations. If it just tells you what the consumer in my area is willing to spend, right? That's disposable income. They have an image to keep up. They want that. And I've offered it to customers in there, and they're like, yeah, that's not for me, or whatever the case may be. So we do it. Although the retail customer who shows up in my center is not interested in that. Majority of the time, they're interested in a quick oil change, which I'm not really interested in. Although I said I will start to take in more oil changes. So that would be engines, transmissions, oil changes that we're going to start working on, trying to get one more car a day in the shop. So most of those product lines I just talked about are not a very popular service in my shop. But an oil change is probably the most risky for the least amount of money and profit in the short term. In the long term, it builds a relationship potentially, and you could have a customer for life, or however anyone wants to spin that. I really don't want to talk about it too much more. Flat tires, typically if we're busy and someone calls and says, can I come right over for a tire plug or a patch? We don't usually entertain that. We're going to start entertaining more of that. And we're going to stick to our standards of service there, is that if the tire's bad, the tire's bad. We're not going to plug a cracked tire. We're not going to plug a bald tire. We're not going to plug a tire that the sidewall's melted on. And these are the scenarios that we see 9 out of 10 times is the tire's shot and they just want a tire plug. And then we're going to work on the phone procedure to try and improve my business system in my centers. And this could improve anyone's shop performance if they try to take on one more job a day that they don't normally entertain or do. And it has to work for you for it to work out and be successful. So there are the things that we're going to do. And it's very hard to offset a non-foundation core service that was falsely driven into sales volume and profits, and now it no longer exists. So that's just like them discontinuing parts on a car that's 3 years old, right? It's like, all right, now what? Like, this service is basically discontinued for us, stolen catalytic converters. It's still happening, but it's not happening like it was. So trying to put your business, in line with that non-foundation core service, the product line sales that went, through the moon, right? Like, it went viral, and it did, and I felt for the Northeast. I don't know if it was anywhere else. I'd have to put more signs to it. So now you have to go back to trying to get back to where you were. Are we ever going to get back to where Philadelphia was with stolen catalytic converter sales? I don't think so. I mean, we're going to have to work on many other things and work on all the other product lines and add possibly potentially new services to reach those sales volumes. That's it. Thanks for watching.